What's up, Katie girl? What's up, little Katie girl? Oh, big stretch. Second vlog in a row. Opened. Hey, Spencer. Opened the same way with a different dog. Unintentional. How's that work out? We got such a heavy rain last night. This garden is soaked. You can kind of see some of the water pooled up there. Jeremiah and I both came flying out of bed at exactly 2:59 this morning. Man, having a farm will put you in such a state of awareness about... I'm splashing this coffee everywhere. I need to drink this before I spill it all. Having a farm will put you in such a state of awareness about the weather and what's happening outside. And I don't think there is a more helpless feeling on the farm than lying in bed at 3 in the morning while the wind beats up against your house so hard that you're like, oh my gosh, please let our windows hold. Like, it was so windy. It was such an intense storm. It only lasted about 10 minutes, but goodness, it is a helpless feeling. And in that moment, the best you can do is just hope that your infrastructure holds. And ours did. We came out this morning and all the animals are completely fine. Nothing is amiss. We didn't even really have a bunch of stuff blown around, but it sounded really bad for a little bit. Oh, hey, sweet Maya.
What's that?
Ooh, it is windy. Sometimes I find Maya just in these hammocks. This is where he does all business calls, so he calls it his office. If it's not like actively raining, this is where he comes out and makes business calls. It's kind of funny. You're doing business in your office?
Pretty nice office on a day like today.
Yeah, it is. It is a beautiful day out. It's super blue skies, sunny. It feels really good. Actually, it seems like a really great day to start some seeds. What do you think?
I mean, I'll do that with you, but I'm pretty sure you think every day is a good day to start seeds.
I guess your little drainage situation here worked.
Yeah, so the culvert worked over there.
They put a culvert in this pasture because it was so sloshy we had to always walk through it. So now we have a little road that goes over it, and they dug this out. And nothing else is sloshy. So apparently it did its job. The thing about building a farm that I don't think people talk enough about is water diversion. Like, understanding how the water flows on your property, especially if you're getting property that's like really truly raw. Now, we've called this raw land because we didn't have any utilities here, but this land did have some contouring. You know, it's been, how long ago has it been that they put this pond in? I mean, like 40 years or something, right? It was before Papa T had it. So Papa T, our neighbor, bought this property in the 80s, I think. And he had it for a while, and then he sold it to our other neighbor's dad. And then we ended up buying it. And we kind of have the history on it. And that pond was here when Papa T got it. And so it's been there for a long time. But whoever put that pond in, it would appear that they did some other contouring. So this property drains really well. But you know, anytime you like bring driveways in or build structures or anything like that, you always have to account for how it's going to move the water. We don't live in a place that gets a ton of rain. I think the average here is about 50 inches a year, which for those of you who live like in very desert places, that's a lot. But that's not, that's Arkansas averaged, I think, 80 the last 2 years we were there. That's one of those things that it's hard to like make a plan right off the bat. You kind of have to do things and then adjust and adjust. And so we've been doing that, like putting little culverts and ditches and different things as we build. When you do get really heavy rain, if you're building, it's such a benefit. Like the fact that it rained that hard at this stage of building this greenhouse is a blessing, because we're able to come out here this morning and see that there's no standing water, which means we did it right. Good job, sweet Maya. Be careful. Oh, well, you're not going to tip on that. I tipped so hard on that the other day. I actually did hurt my foot pretty good. It's not as bruised as it was.
Did you leave that in the video?
I did leave it in the video. Keeping it real here at Roots and Refuge Farm. Y'all got to see me gracefully bite the dust. My foot went down and the board kind of bent and then came back up and my foot was like stuck. I'm glad I didn't actually genuinely like hurt myself worse. Gosh, a broken ankle during this time would have been a real bummer, actually. You're like, no kidding, I'm really glad you didn't break your ankle. This is my window greenhouse and the state that it's in. So one thing that we have established through this last several months of being on our farm and how quickly we are knocking projects out is that everything needs to be fairly flexible. And like, for instance, we really wanted to get this window greenhouse done by the beginning of February, but dairy cows, and we're doing all of these things, and there are limits. I know we're doing like a ton at once, but we have limits. And when it became pretty apparent that we weren't going to get this done in time to start all of our seeds when we might like to, I kind of started exploring some other options. Because what we didn't want to do is rush a structure that we are hoping to use for decades even, in order to start seeds, you know, when we want to one particular season. All right, guys, so my camera actually died earlier and my friend came over, so it's later in the day. And we're about to set up this little greenhouse thing that I bought. So I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about starting seeds. So since our window greenhouse isn't gonna be done really with the shelving and all of that stuff for a couple of weeks, I had a choice to make on whether I was going to go ahead and start the seeds in another way or if I was going to wait to start the seeds. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about seed starting. I have exhausted this topic in years past, but in case you've never heard that, it will give you kind of a baseline so you can track with my reasoning here and my decision making. You want to find out your last frost date to know when you should start your garden seeds. Now, you find out your last frost date by putting in a Google search, last frost date for your zip code, the closest city, and it'll pop up. Now, I want you to keep in mind that is an estimation based on weather records. It is not a guarantee. When it comes down to your last frost date, you always need to be watching that 10-day forecast super close. And if there are any days that look like it's going to get close to freezing in the overnight temperatures in your 10-day forecast, you want to wait to move any sort of frost tender plants outside, because it does not matter how much you have babied those for the last 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, a freeze will kill them. It doesn't care how invested you are. Now, one thing that you'll hear a lot in this conversation, even, you know, you'll hear YouTubers and they'll say, like, for instance, hey, I'm in zone 7, I'm in zone 8. I am in zone 8A. That has nothing to do with your last frost date. Just because a person is in the same zone as you does not mean that you can follow the same planting schedule as them. What a zone denotes is the average low temperature in that region. It has nothing to do about when it gets that cold, it's just that it gets that cold. Like here, I am in zone 8. And that means that the average low temperature, except for in very extreme circumstances, does not exceed colder than 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -12 Celsius. It has nothing to do with when to start your seed. So when people throw out their zone, especially when you're like, oh, I can take this person's gardening advice because they live in zone 7 and I live in zone 7. Zone 7's all over the place. There's people living in Oregon in zone 7, in Arizona in zone 7. I was in zone 7 in Arkansas. Very, very different conditions, same average low temperature. So that's all that means. Now, when you find out your last frost date, for instance, mine is about April 1st here in the Midlands of South Carolina. It was about April 1st in Central Arkansas also. And once you have that last frost date, you're going to count backwards from then. And so for me, I usually like to start my seeds for peppers, for tomatoes, for eggplants, for sunflower, all of those things that are going to take a little bit longer to get to transplant size. I like to start those about 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks before my last frost date. You don't want to go much over that, because what will happen is, let's say you started them like 12 weeks before, those plants are going to be like busting at the seam, and you're going to end up having to up pot them again, or they're going to really start struggling before it's warm enough to put them out, because again, that's an estimate. So if I get my 6-week tomato seedlings down to the last frost date, and there's frost on the forecast and I have to wait, let's say we have a frost 3 weeks after the last frost date, which is not unheard of or even uncommon, that, you know, my plants might be in really rough shape by the time I get to put them out. So unless you have just like an ample amount of space and like a really great willingness to keep buying soil in larger containers, 6 weeks is like your spot. I have had a greenhouse forever. Like, since I've been doing YouTube, I've always had a greenhouse. We built our first greenhouse from a Harbor Freight kit right before, like, just probably a couple years before we started our YouTube channel. And since I've had a gardening YouTube channel, I've had people tagging me in posts on social media of these cheap plastic greenhouses, like, that are non-permanent, that can be taken down. These pop up in box stores and like Tractor Supply and garden centers and all of that stuff. They're on Amazon. They're usually less than $100. Now, I will tell you, a lot of the posts that I was being tagged in are people lamenting the fact that their greenhouse got blown over. So you're going to see me put this thing together. I am not telling you to go buy one right now. Actually, I'm saying hold off, and, you know, unless you want to try something new alongside me. I've never had any need to give one of these a try, to give it a review. I get asked about them all the time because it is an affordable way to start seeds. However, I think it's a little risky because I have seen so many posts of them going wrong. Even like you go on the Amazon thing and there's like some of the reviews, it's like a greenhouse toppled over with a bunch of people's seeds in it. Very sad. Very, very sad thing to see, because again, like, that you just lose your investment when you lose your seedlings. So I'm going to take a risk to review this in what I believe is probably the last time I'm going to have need of a greenhouse, other than obviously the one that we're building. I'll have that from now on. And so I just bought actually 2 greenhouse options. We're just probably going to have the light to build one of them today. And I'm going to use that to start my seeds, and then I'll up pot those into our greenhouse once it's ready. So I ordered 2 different kinds of these like cheap plastic greenhouses, because I'm really wanting to like find a good solid option that I can recommend to people, because obviously, like, everybody's not going to be in a position to build a window greenhouse, or a kit or anything like that. And if we can figure out a way to rig one of these up that it is a safe option for your plants, and if it actually holds heat well, that would be great. I would love to find an affordable, obtainable option to recommend to people. But I've asked Maya to come out here and put this together with me. Maya is like, he's like really brilliant at figuring things out. Oh, Jamie. Jamie is doing his mousing job. I'm not going to show it to you guys because I don't want anybody to feel upset about it, but he has killed a little field mouse. Well, I'm not going to discourage him. I definitely want him to do that. Whew. But as I was saying, Maya, dear sweet Maya, he is good at, what is it, MacGyvering things? Was that the show? MacGyver?
We're not old enough to know that.
He said we're not old enough to know that. He's good at figuring things out. Yes. Like I showed you guys where he took a soap dispenser to hold the olive oil by the milker. He is like full of these things. And they just come to him. I'm like, how did you think of this? So my hope was, since I need one of these little cheap greenhouses, and many of you need these and ask me about this on a regular basis, I was like, I'm going to buy these. I'm going to get Maya to help me set it up. And he'll think of some clever way. No pressure.
I'm not making any promises.
It's just all of these people that need to start seeds and don't have a greenhouse, or are you to build one for them. They kind of like, they need a hand here.
There's only one of me.
That's true. Mine? Okay, will you help me open this? I'll link to the greenhouses. I don't know which one this is. Is this the taller one or the lower one?
Probably the taller one. The other box is smaller.
Oh yeah, this is the taller one that has shelves. Oh, this is gonna be, this might be a little more involved than we have time for in this limited light situation.
Guess we're going to find out.
You're the one, you're the fixer.
Well, why don't we build this and then we can move it inside the window greenhouse when it's finished, and then it'll be protected.
What's with that country accent?
All my kids are talking like that now. I swear, Ben came out yesterday and was like, it's over yonder. And I'm like, yonder? We ain't been here that long.
All right, so this one was $67. And then I ordered another one, which we'll put up later. We won't have time to do it today. And this is one of the ones that's taller and has shelving. And these are the ones that I have seen many more times that they get blown over. And I also ordered one that's kind of more like a cold frame that like kind of is low to the ground. And that one was $54. Now you guys know I really like to support American-made companies. This is not that. These are cheap products. There's no like getting around that. This is not a high quality product. This is not the kind of stuff that I typically like to buy. However, I get inundated with requests every single year from people saying, I really want to be able to save money by starting seeds. I really want to be able to do this, and asking for input. If you have the option to do something higher quality, I do think that that's better. But I also think that it's important that gardening is accessible. We're talking about being able to grow food in a time while the prices are going up quite a lot at the grocery store. Gardening is important, and it being accessible. If sometimes we have to buy products, like there's good, better, best here. And while I don't think that this is necessarily great, if it opens up the option of locally growing your food and not buying food from the store, taking away the shipping of all of that and all of that stuff. I think sometimes you have to weigh out both sides of things, because I know people will be like, well, that's plastic and that's, you know, China and that's all those things. Agreed. I don't like that either. But if it makes a way for people to grow food, you kind of have to weigh that out. Right, Maya?
Yep. What?
I may have just time-lapsed all that, but I might not have. I just looked at it and it did not appear to be working. So for a person who does this as my job, my technological skills leave a lot to be desired. My greenhouse puzzle putting together skills underneath Maya's leadership.
A-okay.
Ben just got really excited because, Ben, what is this? A tiny greenhouse. You want to know who this seems to be the perfect size for?
Who?
Yeah. For one small garden boy.
I'm just a garden boy.
So I would say this went together
Pretty
smoothly. The instructions are as they often are with these cheap products. They, like my technology prowess, they leave a lot to be desired, but you know, able to figure them out. And once there were a couple times we had to kind of undo pieces and redo them. But overall, this was pretty smooth. This is a very, very lightweight product. I understand fully how people have showed. I've seen a lot of photos of these turned over where they caught a wind. Like that storm we had last night would have torn this thing to shreds, I bet, with that heavy wind.
It's too hard.
So what I think we're gonna do for starters is we're going to fasten this to a fence. So like maybe over here. I don't know, we might do it over here. I just want to have it close enough to where this hose reaches it. You would want this anchored.
You're not lying, it really is a greenhouse.
It is a greenhouse, that's true. But overall, for 50 or 60 bucks, if you were able to tie this down. Now we'll also see how well it holds heat. I have a very realistic expectation for the heat holding capacity of this. So this is the case too, even with nicer greenhouses, like our old Harbor Freight kit. It's just like a thin plastic with high tunnels. they don't hold a lot of heat. Like, I would even go as far to say probably you're not going to be able to heat this and get a lot. But what it's going to do is it's going to really warm up during the day when the sun is out, and it's probably going to help the soil in the containers and kind of help it maintain some of the heat in the evening. I did get a little thermometer that I can put in here that syncs to my phone, because I want to be able to kind of have a record and be able to look at it through the day to be able to tell you guys how much heat this is actually holding. But right now where I am in South Carolina, most nights are hovering at or above freezing, or they're well above freezing. So we're not getting any real hard freezes. So I'm gonna go ahead and start some frost tender things. If the temperature was gonna drop more than a few degrees below freezing, even if it was gonna really drop, yeah, more than a few degrees below freezing, I would go ahead and take frost tender plants out of here. But I'm gonna explore that. I'm gonna experiment with that. I know this might not help some of you who are needing to start seeds right now, but for future cause and for me to be able to learn this, for people to be able to start seeds, because starting seeds ultimately saves you lots and lots of money. But if you spend thousands of dollars making a greenhouse to start seeds, not so much. All right, so these are the little shelves. They just clip on.
Yeah.
I have seen some cool stuff. You know, we have our
Use zip ties if I need to.
Yeah, we could use zip ties for that. We could wash one of the clips. I have seen some cool things where people take these little plastic greenhouses and they put them in their garage, and then they do run some sort of little heater in it, and they put grow lights in it in their garage. And so it's kind of protected from the cold of the garage, helps hold some heat in, and then grow with grow lights. So there are other options. Good job, Ben. Wow, you're so helpful. I think probably some extra zip ties on these would probably be a good idea anyway.
Well, what happened, how I lost the last one is...
It popped off.
I pushed the shelf down, see, just like that.
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
As soon as you put pressure on this shelf, it's going to pop these clips off.
So automatically plan on putting zip ties on these.
I would. I just don't see how this works outside of that. Unless I'm hanging these wrong, but I don't think I am. I think zip ties makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'll just come back out with zip ties and
well, let's put the cover on and see what it looks like. So are these the anchors that they provide?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let me see that.
I think they're rated for like 130-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, so these are the little anchors that this comes with. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, if you buy one of these greenhouses, this is not gonna cut it at all. These are super lightweight, and you gotta think of the amount of pressure that can build underneath this much area grabbing hold of the wind. And if you have a really heavy wind, it'll just bend these and just bend them straight up out of the ground. So this is not great. I would definitely plan on anchoring this to something that's solidly anchored on more than one point. Like we talked about, maybe anchoring it here to the pergola thing over the garden, but we would only be able to anchor one point. And even that would make me nervous, because even if it didn't pick the whole thing up, if it jerked it real good and knocked all your seed containers off, you'd still lose your seedlings. Well, I mean, it's kind of a cute little guy, isn't it? I am excited. Seed starting season is an exciting time, no matter where you're doing it.
They're untangled.
What is that?
These are the little ropes that go with those.
Oh.
Super, yeah, look at this. Whew.
Okay, so we just...
So what I'm really going to do is just use these to tie it off to the fence.
Okay.
I won't use these at all.
And I think taking those sandbags and just kind of lining them on these bottom things would be good.
And then I'll probably get some 550 cord and do a couple of times over the top, which holds pressure down on all the connections.
Right.
On the outside, on top, to hold the plastic down.
And then you can use those even to tie to the fence. So we're just going to like really secure it to a fence on multiple points and then weigh the bottom down also.
Yeah.
I will report back and update you guys on this. Hey, can I come in?
No girls allowed.
Mommy doesn't count for no girls allowed, right?
Welcome in.
Oh, welcome in. Okay, well, I'm 5'5", and I can stand up fully in here. Jeremiah He could stand up like right in the middle. He'd have to really duck to get in. But I feel like this is a comfortable size to manage to be able to put some seed trays. I'm also noticing a dancing boy, but I mean, even with these zipped down, there could potentially be some like escaping of air down here. So you might, you know, we might have to do some more modifications. I'll get that thermometer in here.
Like tied up here.
Yeah, those are ties to open this door and tie it open. Here, can you let me out, please? Yeah. Will you open that? Yeah. I'm gonna put the thermometer in here once we get this secured, and again, start monitoring the temperature. I'm just really curious to see. An interesting experiment.
We'll never have need to test it out again.
I know, that's what I was saying.
So
if I didn't do it now, I might as well. And we're gonna build that other one too, and it's more low to the ground. So trying out these options, maybe we can find some good solutions to recommend to you guys in a time of need for seed starting. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We bless you. Until next time.